going to be talking tonight by the help of God about the lowlands of life. I think we've all been there. The lowlands of life, and we're going to be ministering out of the book of Luke, chapter 9, verses 28 through 42. Go ahead. And it came to pass about 8 days after these sayings, he took Peter and James and John, Peter, John, and James, and went up into the mountain to pray, speaking about Jesus. And as he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment was white and glistening. And behold, there talked with him 2 men, which were Moses and Elias, which was Elijah, who appeared in glory and spake of his decrease. This was Jesus talking to them about his coming crucifixion. And remember, they were already in heaven, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. But Peter and they that were with him were heavy with sleep, and when they were awake, they saw his glory and 2 men that stood with him. And it came to pass, as they departed from him, Peter said unto Jesus, Master, it's good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias, not knowing what he said. While he thus spake, there came a cloud and overshadowed them, and they feared as they entered into the cloud. And there came a voice out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, hear him. And when the voice was past, Jesus was found alone. And they kept it close and told no man in those days any of those things which they had seen. And it came to pass that on the next day, when they were come down from the hill, the mountain they'd be on, much people met him. And behold, a man of the company cried out, saying, Master, I beseech thee, look upon my son, for he is mine only son. And lo, a spirit takes him, and he suddenly cries out, and it tears him, and he foameth again. He was foaming at the mouth, and he was, in convulsions and so on. And it's bruising him, hardly departing from him. And I besought thy disciples to cast him out, and they could not. And Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you and suffer you? Bring thy son hither. And as he was yet a-coming, the devil threw him down, this is a young boy, and tare him, and Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the child and delivered him again to his father. And the church says, amen. You might be seated. I want to talk about the lowlands of life. This is actually the account of Jesus when he went up on the Mount of Transfiguration, where he took Peter, James, and John with him. And they saw the glory of Jesus. They saw all of God that veiled him, his human flesh veiled him, and it was pulled aside, and they saw the glory of God. And the Bible said that Jesus' clothes glistened. When you look that up, it's the same word for lightning. Can you imagine? As they looked, that it was like looking into lightning, as the glory, it was so magnificent. And that's what they saw. They beheld the glory of God. Church, we're going to see that. Think about that. We're going to see that one day. But anyway, we call it the Mount of Transfiguration. But I believe tonight that if you were to ask Jesus what that mount was called, what he called it, he would probably say it's the mountain of prayer. Because he went to that mountain to pray. And the Bible said he went there to pray, and as he prayed, he was transfigured. So many times, what we want to do, we want to change things in our life, but we want to manufacture it. But we can't do that. You see, as we pray and as we come into the presence of God, then God himself will change us into exactly what it is that he wants us to be. And it excited Peter. You know, Peter was just impulsive. Peter was he was the first one into everything. Oh, Master, far be it unto you. They'll not do that to you. I mean, that's just Peter. And when Peter, in his excitement and his lack of understanding, he sees Elijah and he sees Moses, he sees Jesus there. He said, Master, let's make 3 tabernacles. In other words, let's honor all 3. And a voice from eternity came, and a cloud came in there. And it was God himself that showed up, and he separated that in there. And what he wanted to do, he didn't want them to see anything but Jesus, because Jesus is the only one worthy of honor. Moses and Elijah were not going to go to the cross and die. It was Jesus who was going to go to the cross and die. And the voice from eternity said, this is my beloved Son, hear him. We don't share God's glory with anybody. Nobody. It belongs to nobody but God. But anyway, when that happened, this vision took place on the mountain. Now, y'all known me long enough to know I'm a mountain person. I love the mountains because I was born and raised there. Some of y'all like the ocean. Some of you like the what we call the desert or whatever. Sometimes I call this the desert. But anyway, I like the mountains. And spiritually speaking, I like the mountain areas better than I do the valleys. How many of you really like to get down in the valley? I don't. I like it when I travel to the mountaintops. I like it when the glory of God is there. I like it when I commune with him up yonder, you know, and I can feel his presence and all of that. But then, bless God, if we don't have to come down off that mountain and we find ourselves in a valley. The Bible said in verse 37, on the next day, after being in the glory, after seeing all of that, the next day they come down from that mountain, from that hill. Listen, church. There is always going to be a next day in our lives until Jesus Christ comes. We can come in here on a Sunday and we can feel God and have a glorious service, and you go out that door and the next day it's Monday. I mean, that's just the way that it is. But I want you to hear me, church. There are some lessons that we can learn in the valleys that we cannot learn on the mountaintop. You cannot build a tabernacle when you're on top of that mountain and live there forever. We just can't do it. It wasn't meant for that to take place. And again, there's some things that we cannot fully experience. There's things that God wants to teach us that we don't learn on the mountain. Children, the only place you're going to learn them is when you find yourself down in a valley. You see, Jesus knows what's best for us. And the same God is at work on the mountaintop experiences, and the same loving Father is in the valleys that is on the mountaintops. Let me leave it just a second while I remind you of something that took place in the Word of God, and all of y'all know this. It was in 1 Kings chapter 20. The Syrians were threatening the nation of Israel. And they say that Israel's God, this is what the Syrians said, Israel's God said, they might have beat us on the mountaintops, but I've never seen them win a battle in the valley. Their God can't win a battle in the valley. I'm paraphrasing it. But do you know what Jesus said? Or God said, because they said that I'm a God of the mountain, I'm not the God of the valley. He told Israel, he said, I'm going to let you win that battle. And I'm going to let you win it right smack dab in the middle of the valley. And you're going to say, and others is going to say, and you're going to know that I'm not only God of the mountaintops, but I am also the God of the valley. Church, wherever your valley might be, maybe somebody listening out there by live streaming and they're going through a deep, deep valley. A valley is a hard place to go through. You see, we think of them as lush and full of greenery and all, but in Israel's day, they were not all like that. They were treacherous. They were a hard place to have to go through. The serpent would hide in the rocks and come out and bite as you would go through those valleys. Robbers would be there. All kinds of things would take place. A lot of it's not like that today, but it was in the day that Jesus walked the earth. And the Lord says, you might say, well, I don't want to go into that valley. I've had enough valleys. Lord, I don't want to. Why do I have to do that? And the Lord says, listen, you just pay attention, because this valley is going to be your classroom. It's where I'm going to instruct you in some stuff. And it's where I'm going to end up making you into the person that I expect you to become. It's not easy, is it, church? Have me see the hands of all of those that's been through valleys. Every one of us. Deep valleys. But we still here tonight, aren't we, church? Who brought us through them? Jesus Christ did, the Son of the living God. So what are some of the lessons? I want to look at them very quickly tonight, because sometimes some of the valleys, even you go through, you may have, it should be fertile ground. It should be, a place where the water flows there and so on and so forth. But it doesn't matter what it looks like. One name for Jesus is the lily of the valley. That tells me that no matter what kind of a valley you're going through, you're going to meet him there. One lesson that I want to bring out that we need to learn when we go through the lowlands and the troubled situations, God said, I want you to learn to extend my love to other hurting people. Did y'all hear that, church? Let me ask you this question. Why did God save us and then allow us to just live? If all it is to salvation is, that's it. I mean, why didn't he save us and take us on? Because he had a work for us to do. And there are things that take place in our lives, children of God, that we learn when we go through our valleys, and it causes us, when somebody else has got that problem and got a situation, you feel for them. You look at them, and you've got compassion for what they're going through. And you will reach out in your valley, and you say, listen, God brought me through mine. If he brought me through mine, he'll bring you through yours. Look what a testimony Brother Wayne's going to have. Look what a testimony my son's going to have. Others that are going through Joni when she comes through hers. Look at the situations. We're believing God to touch others and to heal others. And they're going to have testimonies, and they're going to be able to help other people who don't know which way to turn. Even sinner people, even people that don't know God. And you're going to be able to go to them and say, listen, I've been there. I know what you're going through. I come through it. But let me tell you how I got through it. Let me point you to the one that's able to take you through it. And then you can say, can I pray for you? You see, that's what God wants us to do, church. But Peter said, let's stay here on the mountain. What Peter did not understand and know was something that Jesus did know. That when they was come off that mountain, that at the bottom of that mountain, there was a multitude of people. And they were hurting people. I mean, there's what, 7 billion, I don't know how many, is it 7 billion people on this earth? And do you know that the majority of them has never accepted Jesus as their Savior? And it reminds me of the entire world, and they're just waiting for somebody to walk by and point them to Jesus and show them the way. And we are the ones that he wants to use. They've never caught a glimpse of his glory. Think about that. You and I are privileged tonight. We can come into this church, gather together, and we can feel his spirit. We may not be the best singers in the world, but that's okay. We still feel his spirit. Hallelujah. But there's much people in the world, and they're thrashing around, and they're helpless, and they're in bondages. And just like this young boy, his daddy said that the devil takes him and he throws him in the fire, and he's been burned in the fire. He's thrown him into the water and tried to drown him. This boy had no peace. This boy had no joy. He had no innocent look upon his face because he was bound by the devil. And it's a picture of every family that's trying to live without Jesus Christ. Every father, every mother, every child trying to raise their family without God. Children growing up. I'm not saying they're all demon-possessed, but they definitely are caught in the snare of the devil, and he's watching them as they're marching to hell, and he's laughing at them every step of the way. They need somebody to witness to them. I think of the children who come to this church, the majority of them. They'll carry their Bibles. You look at these little ones on a Sunday, and they get that money, and a lot of them will take it, and they're learning to give. They just run right to that jar and throw it in there. You know what I'm saying? But they're being taught, and I thank God for that. But there's an entire generation of young people that don't know that. They don't know about Jesus. And God says, I'm taking you into a valley situation. I'm causing things to take place in your life. It doesn't mean I'm leaving you there alone. I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. But I'm going to teach you some things there that you will be able to use to help somebody else that needs help. But you know what? We've got to get off of that mountain to meet God there. Do you know that most of us are so selfish that when we go and start going into a valley, and we get into trouble, we have the audacity to think it's just about us. But have you ever stopped to think that God lets us go maybe into a hospital, not for you, but so that you can meet the one in the room next door? What'd you say, 2 families you prayed for, Diane? They're at the hospital. We think, well, I lost my job, and we think it's so horrible, and it is. It's not an easy thing to go through. But did you ever think it could be the divine providence of God that he's placing you, took you out of one job to put you in another place where there's a harvest there, and they need to be witnessed to? Paul said that we're to comfort others, wherewith the comfort that we were comforted with of God. See, God knows what he's doing in our lives. It's not easy for us, and the only way we can accept the things that are taking place, and the only way we can keep our victory and our strength up is to look at the big picture and know that Jesus is in control of our lives. No matter what the situation looks like, no matter how bad that it is, get your eyes off of the problem and get them on the problem solver. He'll bring us through, children of God. Let me tell you something about a valley. It's in the valley when you're walking through these situations. Sometimes it could be death of a loved one. It could be a lot of things we go through. But while you're going through that valley, there's a lot of what I call divine intersections. A lot of divine appointments with hurting people, like this multitude that when they come down off of that mountain, multitudes were there. And there was this man, and he was his only son, and he was demon-possessed. And people need a Savior. Now, you can go to Mark's account of the same story, and the dad cries out and he says to Jesus, he said, if thou can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Can you hear the desperation in his words? That's the cry of an entire world, church, looking for compassion from somebody to help. If you can, would you help me? And he was talking to Jesus. But there is no such love or compassion apart from Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, God is love. We can't fathom that. We say God loves us, but it's more than that. He is love. We really can't. Our minds cannot grasp that. But there's nothing but a hard, cold, bitter world out there apart from Jesus Christ. And I'm saying to you listening, that in your valley, God expects us to extend what you found on the mountaintop when you were there and you found his peace and your joy and the glory. You are to get down into those valleys, then you are to extend what you found up there to those that are down here. And then the next thing, you're going to find yourself climbing the mountain again. And you'll get to be with him again and in his glory. And then the next thing you know, it's the next day again. And you go back down into the valley and you run into more people. And that's what it's all about. That's why he didn't just take us to heaven when he saved us. We've got a job to do. We not only learn the lesson to extend the love of God to others, but we learn that there's a lesson to expect spiritual opposition. Now, church, I'm going to tell you, why do we get surprised when the devil fights us at everything that we do? Why do I get surprised when I come up here and sometimes y'all don't even realize what's going on, and we try to minister the word and we're fighting the powers of hell in a spiritual battle as we try to get the word out? Why are we surprised at that? I've left this pulpit many a times and gone out that door and said, God, I'm not coming back again. Enough is enough. You don't realize until you're up here the spiritual battles that you fight. But there's a reason for that. The devil is trying to stop what's going out. But God said his word would not go out and come back void. It's going to accomplish whatever it is he sends it to. But the devil doesn't want it to go out. And everything we do, we've got a battle to fight, children of God. And greater is he that's in us and he that's in the world. We know who the victor is, but there's a battle, there's a fight that we go through. And between now and the end of time, when this whole thing is over with, the devil is bringing out his big guns, so to speak, in these last days. And he's with Sister Luke, where's the front lines at? Look around, where's the casualties at? You'll find the front lines. You know where they are? Mostly in families. The casualties are on the minds of our children, on the purity of our young people and our families. That's where the devil's attacking at. Think it not strange concerning the fiery trial, which is to try you as though some strange thing happened unto you. They persecuted Christ, and they're going to persecute me and you, the followers of Christ. And in the valley, you're going to run into spiritual opposition. The devil is the accuser of the brethren. He's a tempter, but that's not his only work. His greatest work is accusation. He'll tempt you to sin. Have you ever had him to tempt you to do that? He'll tempt you to sin. And then if it's a weak moment and you do something that you shouldn't done, then the very moment you do that, you know what he does? He moves in from being a tempter to the accuser. And he says to you, you call yourself a Christian? And by the way, he'll accuse you to somebody else and somebody else to you. He'll accuse you to God, and he'll accuse God to you. He'll say God doesn't care. That's what he does. Why should we think it's strange, Brother Eugene, when he does us the way that he does it? Because the devil plants seeds, you see, of accusation. He works to try to bring division and disruption into the body of Christ. Why does he do it, Sister Obie? Because he knows if we really, really, really get fully into one accord and one mind and real unity in the power of God, it will be upon us, and God can use us to cast out demons, to do whatever needs to be done. So he tries to disrupt the unity. He'll do it in our homes. He'll do it in our families. He'll cause families to fight against families. But anyway, let me go on. In Luke 9:40 and verse 41, the boy's father once again said to Jesus, I besought your disciples to cast him out, and they could not. And Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you and suffer you? Bring thy son hither. Can you see the love that he had, though, for that boy? In spite of his disciples not doing what they should have done and been able to do, and yet he loves that boy. And I guarantee you, with the multitudes, that wasn't the only miracle he performed while he was there. Jesus heard that father say, he is my only son. And Jesus could identify with that. If you had children, you know what I'm talking about. He said, they're mine. And it doesn't matter what they get into, how bad they get, they're still yours. You don't like it, you don't condone it, but you love them. You just don't love what they do. In verse 42, as he was yet coming, it said the devil threw him down and tore him. His body went into convulsions. He became distorted. And he healed that child, and he cast that devil out. That's a terrible thing to have to see somebody in that condition. But the Bible said the devil threw him down. Even as Jesus said, come out of him. The devil tore him coming out of him. You see, the Lord is always seeking to build men up. The devil wants to tear them down. If you've got something in your life and it is God ordained, I will guarantee you the devil's going to come after it. You hear me? Your family is ordained by God. So what does the devil do? He goes after your family. This church is ordained. Every church, every God blood-bought church in this world is ordained by God. So what happens? The devil goes after it. Your finances, your health, your children, he goes after that, trying to destroy it. The devil wants to distract and destroy everything that God has ordained for his kingdom. He opposes anything that God has. In the valley is where we learn to extend the love of God to others. We learn to expect spiritual opposition. And thirdly, in the valley, you've got to learn to exercise your faith every single day. In verse 40, the Bible said about these disciples, they could not. He had left those disciples at the bottom of the mountain, but yet they could not cast that devil out. He said they were faithless. That's what Jesus said. They were faithless. Do you know what the sin of the blood-bought, blood-washed church of God is? It is the fact that we do not believe God the way we ought to believe him. It's easy when we're up on the mountain. It is. When you see the glory, it's easy. But that's not faith. That's sight. That's walking by what you can see. And it's living by faith when you're down in that valley and you can't see the clouds move in and trouble moves in and all you see are the mountains on all sides of you. It's in that moment that you've got to have the faith of God and be able to walk in faith. But yesterday's faith will not do it, church. There's a new problem, a new battle every single day, every morning. Do you realize that these disciples had already been casting out devils? Jesus gave them the power. As a matter of fact, even the next chapter, he sends them along with others, 70 of them out on a ministry, and they come back and they're saying even the devils are subject unto us. But yet they were powerless to cast out that one devil. This time comes only by prayer and fasting. You know what? They failed to pray. Jesus was on the mountain praying. He took 3 of his disciples with him. But when he got down there, no doubt his other disciples he left there, they'd forgot the lessons they'd cast out the day before and the day before. And I don't know what they were doing, but they didn't have the faith. They were not praying like they should, or they would have had more faith to cast it out. You understand? Mark 9:22 is a parallel account of this valley experience. And this dad, let me read it how it says in Mark's account. And oftentimes it has cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Now this account gives us Jesus' answer to him. You know what he said? He looked at that dad and he said, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. You see, heaven's answer back to us is if thou can believe. It's not what you did yesterday. It's not even what you're going to do tomorrow. Can you do it today? It's a faith that it has to be every single day. Yesterday's faith will not cover today's problems. You got to seek God every day. And do you know what? I admire this father, even in this situation. He knew his faith wasn't perfect. And he looked at Jesus and he said, I believe, but help my unbelief. I believe, I'm doing all I know how to do, but help my unbelief. You said there's some maybe listening out there, and their faith might be weak, and maybe they don't have any joy, and maybe nobody around you knows the valley situation that you're going through in your life, and just to say, Lord, I believe, that's all I can do is say, I believe, but God, I need your help. Come on, church, you ever been there? I have cried out and said, God, I've prayed and I've prayed and I'm trying to believe, God. I'm reading your word. I'm fasting. I'm praying. I'm doing everything I know to do. But God, would you help my unbelief? Help me to reach out, God. And this is what Jesus is trying to do. He's wanting us to do that so that we can grow in our faith. If we have faith as a grain of mustard seed, that's not saying that little teeny tiny little faith right there will move it all. But as a grain of mustard seed, what do you do with that mustard? You plant it, and then you water that seed, and you take care of that seed, and that seed begins to grow and grow and grow and grow, until Jesus said it would become a great bush one day, that the birds of the air will come and lodge in it, because you have nurtured that seed. You have nurtured that faith. You understand? And Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief is why you can't do this. And he told him about that mustard seed. And he said, if you'll do that and you'll nurture that faith every day, if you'll pray every day, it'll grow one day. You know, I think of it like this. When I first got saved, I thought I had so much faith that, man, I could just go in, I could just touch somebody and cancer might be healed, and I had never even healed a headache, you know. But we got to start as a grain of mustard seed. And he said, if you'll do it every day, if you get in my word, even in the valley situation, I'll teach you. I'll grow your faith until one day when the devils come, you can speak the word only. When people need to be healed, Crystal, you lay hands on them. Speak the word only. Don't you give place to the devil. Don't you do that. I don't see Jesus anywhere going in there wrestling and fighting and begging and pleading with the devil to come out. I remember many, many years ago an account, and I won't say, I know it's over in the old church, but I will not say who. It's, it's not for anybody to know. But I know a situation. There was a lady one time come for prayer. And, man, she was demon-possessed. I'll never forget it. I watched her body as it twisted like a serpent. I mean, a human body can't even twist. It was like that, S-shaped. And your body can't even do that. Yet she rolled in that floor, and she twisted and twisted as a serpent. We cast that devil out. We didn't beg it to come out. No, sirree, we commanded it to come out in the name of Jesus. And do you know to this day that woman is still serving the Lord? You don't give place to the devil. No, sirree. Let me finish this up here. We say, Lord, give me the mountains. Let me live on the mountaintop. And actually, you look at Psalms 22. 22 is an account of Mount Calvary. You go to Psalms 24, it's account of Mount Zion, another mountain. New Jerusalem, the abode of the believers, and the glory of God is seen there. The choirs of heaven are singing. But between 22, the mountain there, and the mountain in Psalms 24, there's Psalms 23. And Psalms 23 was the valley of the shadow of death, you see. We want those mountaintops experience, but between every mountaintop, there's a valley, isn't there, Eugene? You go down one, you're in a valley. Next thing you do, you're climbing up the other one. You see what I'm saying? There's one more thing in the passage in Luke 9. The boy is healed. Jesus cast the devil out. Now, you know he's happy, and you know that Father's happy. But I want you to look in Luke 9, verse 43 and 44. And everything that we've been talking about here, it all comes down to what Jesus was really trying to teach them. They were all amazed at the mighty power of God. This is the multitudes that was at the bottom of the mountain. And so they wondered every one at all things which Jesus did. And he said unto his disciples, now listen, he said, let these sayings sink down into your ears. I can just see them in my mind's eye. Let them sink into your ears. Jesus told him that. He said, for the Son of Man shall be delivered into the hands of men. Now get this picture. The boy was healed. His life was changed. Multitudes are standing around. Jesus has been working all kinds of miracles because it said they wondered at all the things he had done. And this man, they were crying out, he ought to be the king. He ought to be the king. Let's make him our king. And you know Peter and James and John and all them disciples, you know they were pleased at what they were saying about their master. I mean, they were probably pleased to be associated with him. You understand? But at that moment, Jesus takes his disciples apart, looks them in the face, and says, now I want you to know I'm getting ready to go to the cross and die. Did you know that every single valley leads to the cross? Because every valley we go through, something's got to die out. There's got to be death to some flesh somewhere. And Jesus had been trying to teach them. First of all, earlier on, he'd been trying to teach that faithless, perverse generation that if you're going to have any faith, it takes prayer. You got to know how to pray more than a lay me down to sleep prayer. And now he's trying to teach them, I didn't come to die down here or to be a king down here. I am the king, but I come to die for the sins of the world. And there is a cross that I'm going to go on. And you're going to have to pick up your cross, and you're going to have to take up your cross daily. And you're going to have to die out to some things. But what's the greatest lesson that we learn in the lowlands of life? when we're going through the valleys and the situations. The greatest thing I learn is I'm nothing apart from God. And I can do nothing apart from him. Do you know why he has to keep taking us through the valley situations? Because we quit forgetting that lesson. I'm telling you, church, keep your eyes, Tangie, get a song ready. Keep your eyes upon Jesus. Keep your eyes upon the church. Reckon yourself dead to sin and alive unto God. And whether you're on a mountaintop or whether you're in a valley situation, God's going to see us through. Church, I do not believe things are going to get any better on this earth before Jesus comes. I don't. It's going to be much, much worse. They say we're almost headed into a great recession. They keep raising interest rates. They keep doing this, doing that. They say this winter is going to be one of the coldest winters, even here in the South, that we've had in years. And people's not even going to be able to pay their electric bills and all of the things that are taking place. But if we'll keep our eyes upon Jesus,